Starting by the Mishnah on Daf Samach Zayin Amud Beis. We come back to the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol in Kippur. This is after the Soyer HaMishtalech was sent out to the Azazel, and now the Kohen Gadol is going to continue with the rest of his Avodah. So Bolo Yetzel Par V'Soyer HaNisrofen. So now the Kohen Gadol will come to the Par and the Soyer. Their blood was sprayed already in all the places that was necessary. And the next thing that has to be done with them is they're taken out, the rest of the body of the animal is taken outside of the machne to burn them over there. Koran, the Kohen Gadol tears open the body of the animal. He takes out the fats and the parts that have to be burnt on the Mizbeach. Then Nosnan b'megis, he places it into a bowl. V'ktiron al gabi ha-Mizbeach, and it's burnt on the Mizbeach. And then kolon b'makleyos, he interweaves them like a braid, and he places them on two poles. Vaitzion lebeis hasreifa, and 4 kohanim, as Rashi here says, carry these two poles that have the par and the soyer that are like braided together on top of these poles, and they're carried outside the machne to be burnt over there. The Gemara will explain exactly where outside Yerushalayim. The Gemara will explain. From what point are those that carry it, their begodim become tamei? As Rashi here brings the pasuk, v'hasayre faisam yechabes begodov. So at what point do their begodim become tamei? So the first Tana says, Mishayetzu chutz l'chaymes ha'azara, the moment they leave the walls of the azara. Shemenayme mishayatzis ha'ur beruban, when the fire that you're burning these outside the machne catches on most of it, so then he becomes tamei. Zok Gemara v'hiktiron, it says in the Mishnah that he took out the pieces and he went and to burn it on the Mizbeach. So the Gemara asks, v'hiktiron sol kedaitach, do you think that it's at this point that he goes right away to burn it on the Mizbeach? That's not the order how it's done. Rashi here brings that the order is, first the Kohen Gadol, as we'll see in the next Mishnah, has to go and read from the Parsha and the Torah, and there's other things that the Kohen Gadol still has to do with his white garments. He's still wearing his big day lovin at this point, right? We never said that he took it off. And then only after he finishes doing everything with the big day lavan, then he has to take it off and put on the big day zav, and only later does he burn it on the Mizbeach. So why does the Mishnah here say v'iktiron? The way to read the Mishnah is le haktiron al gabi ha-Mizbeach. He places it in the bowl with the purpose that on the right time he's going to take it to burn on the Mizbeach. Kolam b'makleyos omer Rav Yochanan kemin kliya. He places the par and the soyer on the poles to carry out, but it's done like they're braided together. Now we learned in the Braisa, he would not cut up the piece, the leftovers of the par and the soyer, the way the basar of the oila was cut up. The basar of the oila was all burnt on the Mizbeach, but you first had to remove the hide from the animal, and then everything that's inside was cut up into pieces and all burnt on the Mizbeach. Over here, as we'll see, this is also cut up into pieces before it's burnt, but they did not remove the hide and then cut it up into pieces. They cut it up into pieces with the hide there all on. How do we know this? The Braisa concludes, Ella oir al gabi basar. The hide is on top of the basar of the animal, and that's how it's cut up. What's the source of it? The Tanya, we learned in the Braisa. Rebbe says, Nema kan, it says over here regarding this par and soyer and kippur that are burnt outside, oir ubasar uperish. The Torah mentions and says that you should take out, as Rashi brings the pasuk, as oiram, as besaram, as pirisham, the hide, the flesh, and the waste inside the animal, all taken out to burn. It also says by another korban chatos, as Rashi brings the par kohen Mashiach. That's if a kohen gadol sins in the Beis Hamikdash, he brings a korban also, a korban chatos, and the blood is sprayed inside, and the body is carried out to be burned. So over there it also says oir ubasar uperish, the same 3 details. Malalon, just like over there, al yedei nituach, it's cut up. The pieces are cut up before it's burnt. But v'loy al yedei hefshit, but you don't take off the skin like the korban oila. Afkan, so to over Yom Kippur, al yedei nituach, it is cut up, but v'loy al yedei hefshit, but you don't take off the skin. And the Gemara now will bring the source. How do we take know v'hasam minala? How do we know that by the par kohen Mashiach, when it's carried out to burn, you don't take off the skin? The Tanya, so we learned this in the Braisa. The Braisa says as follows: V'kirbay u'firshay v'hoitzi. So it says there by the par kohen Mashiach that you take the kirbay, the insides and the pirshay, the waste, and you take it out. Melamed I learn from this pasuk, Shemitziyoi Shalom, that you take it out all together in one piece. You don't cut it up and then carry it out. You take it out all together. Yacha Yisrefenu Shalom. I would think that over there, outside the machna, when you burn it, you're also going to burn it whole as one piece. So for that, I do learn out from Karban Oila. Nemakan Reisha Yuchrav. It says here the term the heads and the legs. V'nema lahalon, and it says by the Karban Oila Reish Ukraayim. Or the other girsa in the Gemara over here is not Reish Ukraayim, but Reisha Uchraov. That's the actual pasuk that it says by the Oila. Mala alon, so just like by the Karban Oila al yedeni tuach, the Karban Oila before it's burnt in the mizbech is cut up into pieces. Afkan al yedeni tuach. Here as well it has to be cut up into pieces. But now the Braisa concludes the point that we were speaking about. Just like by the Karban Oila, the skin is removed first. Afkan al yedei hefshit. So I would think over here as well, the skin is removed before you cut it into pieces. Talmud Laima, so the pasuk says, "V'kirbay u'pirshai," the insides and the waist inside the animal. And from that I know that you don't. From that I know that you don't take off the hide. Now, how do I know that you don't take off the hide from this? So the Gemara says, the source is Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa explained, Kishem shepirshai b'kirbay. Just like regarding the waist, that's something that's left inside and covered, because it's not nice to uncover the waist that's inside. So that's something which is left inside covered. So too, when you get to the rest of the body of the animal, kach b'sarai, the rest of the flesh of the animal, ba'ayrai, is left inside, covered with the hide of the animal, and therefore from here you see that you don't remove it. The next thing it said in the Mishnah was that the begodim are metame. Me'ei mesai metame begodim. When, at what point do the begodim of the person carrying out become tummy? So there was a machlekes in the Mishnah. The Tanna Kama said the moment he left the walls of Yerushalayim, and Rab Shimon said from when it already started the fire, we started catching in most of the pieces. So the source of this we learned in the Braisa. It says in the pasuk over here regarding carrying out the pieces of Yom Kippur, Yaitzi al mechutz la machna. You take it outside the machna, v'sarfa, and you burn it there. Now lahalam, in another place, so here the basis of this entire Gemara will be all the karbanis chatas that are brought in the Beis Hamikdash, where the bloods are taken inside the heichal to spray inside. The halacha is that the body of the animal are taken outside to be burnt. It's not only on Yom Kippur. There's a par koyin Mashiach, which is a karban chatas, and there's a par helam davar shal tzibur, when the whole tzibur sinned because the Sanhedrin paskin in a way that was wrong. So in all those cases, these are karbanis chatas that are carried out. So now, over here regarding the Yom Kippur, it says that you take it out of the machna, and lahalang, by the par koyin Mashiach, atanoisen lem sholish machnas. There it says that you have to carry it out 3 machnas, as the Gemara will soon bring the source. And but the kan over here on Yom Kippur, atanoisen lahem machna achas. You only carry it out 1 machna, because it says yoitzi el mechutz la machna, only 1 machna. So this is a question, and why is this a question? As Rashi says, we see from other places that the Gemara learns out in Zvachim and in Menachos and other places that we compare the two. All karbanis chatas that are carried outside to be burnt, there's a hekesh that they have the same halacha that they're compared to each other. So if I find by all other karbanis chatas that they're carried outside 3 machnes, the same halacha should apply if you hear regarding Yom Kippur when it says it's carried out, that it's carried out all 3 machnes. So why does the pasuk say Yotzi al mechutz la machna, implying that you only carried out 1 machna? Imkein lo menema mechutz la machna. Why is it saying out of 1 machna? So this is the source Laima lacha to tell you kivin sheyotza chutz la machna, when he leaves just one machna achas mitamim begodim. Right away his begodim become tamei. So this is the source of the Tanna Kama's opinion that as soon as he comes out of chutz l'chaymas ha'azara, that's outside the first machna, the machna kohona, the machna of the Beis Hamikdash. As soon as he comes out of there, his clothing got tamei. But now the Gemara brings the source of what we just said, that we learn out from the other karbanas chatas that are taken out, that it goes out of 3 machnas. How do you know out of 3 machnas? From where do I know over there? The Tanya we learned in the Braisa. It says, "V'hoitzias kol hapar." You take out the par chutz l'shalish machnas. This pasuk "V'hoitzias kol hapar" is said by the par kohen Mashiach out of 3 machnas. Atay mechutz l'shalish machnas. You say out of 3 machnas. Ein ela chutz l'machna achas. Maybe it's taken out only out of 1 machna. So the answer is no, because k'shkuoime bepar ha'eda. The pasuk later, it says by the par, this is by the para Edo, when all Yidden sinned, and they have to bring a par, which is also burnt outside. So over there it says, Amuchutz la machne. It says again that you're carrying it outside the machne. And she'ein Talmud loima. It did not have to say it over there. Why? Shaharei kvar nemar. It says over there, v'saraf oisoi, kashasaraf esapara rishon. That you burn this carbon that's brought for all Yidden, for the whole Eidah, like we already said before, Lagabi, the carbon that a Kohen Gadol would have to bring when he sinned, that it's burnt outside. So it said already, Kashasarav Esapara Rishon. Why does it have to mention again the location? Al Mechutz Lamachne. Uma Talmud Loim Al Mechutz Lamachne. Litin Loi Machne Shniya. Saying it a second time is saying that you're going out another Machne. Then Kishoimer. Then there's a third time the Torah speaks about the ashes of the Mizbeach that are taken outside the Machne, and there again it says Michutz LaMachne. She'ein Talmud Loima. It wasn't necessary for the Torah to say that the ashes are carried out Michutz LaMachne. Shakrei Kvar Nemar El Shefech HaDeshem, because it already says before when it talks about taking out the chatas that you burn outside, that you take it to the place where the deshem, where the ashes of the Mizbeach are brought there. So when it says in the Torah to take out the ashes, you know that it has to be outside the Machne because it already said that before. So why does it say it again? Tem loy Machne shlishes. So I have over here 3 times when the Torah writes Mechutz LaMachne, so I see that that means it has to go out all 3 Machnes. Okay, so that's the source that we learn out all 3 machnes. So when it said in the Torah on Yom Kippur, and Mechutz LaMachne, that was extra. So for there I learn that as soon as you leave the Azara, your begadim are tamei. That's the Tanna Kama's opinion. Rab Shimon disagrees. He doesn't learn out this drasha. Rab Shimon says you only become tamei once the fire catches most of the animal that you're burning. So Hai Mechutz LaMachne ma yavidle. What does he learn from this Mechutz LaMachne? He learns out from like what did he learn? We learned in the Braise. It says in the Braise, it says here that it's burnt outside the machne, and then it says by the para aduma. That's what it refers to. By the para aduma, it says that you take it out and shecht it and do everything for the para aduma outside the machne. Makan chutz l'shalish machne. It's just like over here on Yom Kippur. It's outside 3 machnes. Af lahalan chutz l'gimel machne. So too by the para aduma, you take it out all 3 machnes. And then we learn out, Umala halon the mizracha shal Yerushalayim. Just like by the para aduma, where is the aveda of the para aduma done? It has to be done in the mizrach of Yerushalayim. And the reason is because then you have to spray the blood directly lifnei Hashem towards the Kodesh Kadashim. We had that in the Gemara before, how you can see straight. The wall was low enough, in the position you were standing on the mountain outside Yerushalayim, you were able to see straight in. So too over here, the place that you burn the carbon chatas of Yom Kippur, the Mizracha shel Yerushalayim. You burn it in the Mizrach of Yerushalayim. So this is what Rab Shimon uses, Mechutz LaMachne. Mechutz LaMachne is to compare to the para aduma to know on which side outside Yerushalayim you carry it out to. Rabbanan that don't use this Mechutz LaMachne to make this comparison to para aduma. They learn out from it, as we said before, that the person becomes tamei as soon as he left Azara. So you don't learn it out from Paraduma, so where do you burn the Karbanas of Yom Kippur outside the Machne? So we learned another opinion in a Braise. Hey Chan Nisrafim, where are they burnt outside the Machne? Litzfayna shal Yerushalayim. It's burnt on the north of Yerushalayim. V'chutz l'shalish machnes, outside of 3 machnes. Why in Sofni of Yerushalayim? So Rashi says, just like all Aveda of Karbanis, Kachim in the Beis HaMikdash are done on the Tzofn, so too when you carry it out, you also carry it to the Tzofn. Rabbi Yosi says there's another thing that you have to know where to burn it. Abeis hadeshen nisrafin. You have to burn it over there in the place where you put ashes there. Right? It said before that there's also outside the machne, you put the ashes of the mizbeach. So first, you have to have ashes that were placed there. And then, in that same place where the ashes of the mizbeach are there, that's where you burn the karbanis. Some Mefarshim actually say that what it means is there has to actually ashes be there before, and then on those ashes is where you burn the karbanos of Yom Kippur. Others say it doesn't mamish mean that there has to be ashes present there right now, but it means it's the spot where you put the ashes there before. Omar so Novar says, Man Tana de Palag Aleh de Rabbi Yosi. Who is the Tana that argues on Rabbi Yosi in this Braise? Because in this Braise, the Tanna Kama, there was no name. So we see that the Tanna Kama argues on Rabbi Yosi. Even though, if you look in the actual Braise, you can say that maybe Rabbi Yosi is just adding to the Tanna Kama. Right? The Tanakama said the location, that it's on the tzafon of Yerushalayim, and Rabbi Yossi is adding a detail that there should be ashes there. But we see when it says Rabbi Yossi Ayman that he's arguing. So who is this Tana that argued on him? Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. It's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the Tanya, it says Nabraisa, El Shefech, Hadeshen, Yisaref, that you burn it in the place where the ashes are there. Shehei l'sham deshen, that there should be ashes over there where you're burning these karbanos of Yom Kippur. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Ayman. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Shehei mekaymai meshupach. Doesn't necessarily mean that there should be ashes there, but it should be a place which is a slope and the ashes go down. That's what it means. But not that there should actually be ashes there. It's just describing the place that it should be a slope. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye says, not necessarily do I see that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is arguing. Maybe the argument in that brayse between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is only as far as the place is concerned. Is it a flat area or is it an area which is on a slope? That's what they're arguing about. But whether there actually should be ashes placed there before you come to burn the karbanos there, maybe they're not arguing about that. So we don't have a source over here that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is arguing. Tana Rabbanon, we learned in the brayse that it says that the one that burns, not the one that carries it out and burns it outside, his clothing become tamei. So the Brisa says as follows: Hasayrif, the one that's burning these pieces outside, metame begadim, his garments become impure. But v'loy hametzis esa'ir, if there's someone else that's also coming and helping out, and he just ignites the fire, his clothing do not become tamei. V'loy hamesader esamarach, and not the one that prepares the wood to make the fire. Ve'zeu hasayrif. Who is the one that's burning? The one that's helping out while it's actually burning. He is the one that his clothing become tamei. Yochayil, I would think, even if you're helping out once it became ashes already. Your clothing should become tamei. Tamud loymar oisam. It says v'asayif oisam, which means oisam etame begadim. Those pieces of the animal, if you're burning them, makes you tamei, your clothing tamei, v'loy mishana sefer, but not once it's ashes. V'loy mishana sefer metame begadim. That will not be metame your garments. Rav Elazar ben Rab Shimon Aimer, Rav Elazar ben Rab Shimon dashes differently. The pasuk over there says hapar, the one that v'hoitzi is called hapar amuchutz lamachna, right? And v'sara foisai, so it says hapar, which means hapar metame. Only the par, the body of the par is metame, but nitach habasar. If the flesh is burnt already, it does not make your clothing tamei. So both of them are saying that you're not going to become tamei unless you're actually burning the body of the animal itself. But they're dashing it differently. One is saying that once it's ashes, you won't be tamei, and Elazar ben Rab Shimon is saying that once it's burnt, you don't become tamei. So my benayu, what's the difference between these two drushes? Ike benayu, the difference is the shavye charucha. That you burnt it enough that it became burnt. Charucha means it's already decomposed, but it's not yet ashes. So at that point, if someone else is helping to continue burn it, that it should turn into ashes. So according to Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon, you won't be tamei, but according to the Tanakam, it's not ashes yet. So therefore, you will be tamei. Zog the Mishnah, so not coming back to the continuation of the Aved of the Kohen Gadol. Amru loy le Kohen Gadol, they said to the Kohen Gadol, Higia sar le midbar. The side arrived into the midbar, and therefore you can continue to the next Aveda that you're going to be doing. Right? He doesn't continue. Rashi brings in the pasuk that you don't continue the Aveda until it comes to the midbar, because the pasuk says v'shilach hasasar ba midbar, and then he goes on to the other Avedas. But now the question is, how did the Kohen Gadol know that it came to the midbar? How did they know this? So the answer is Dirchais hayoisen. They made Dirchais. There are different pshatim in what Dirchais means, but it actually here says it means that there were people that were standing along the way, that they were standing guard, one person, and then a little bit further another person, a little further another person, and all these people were standing there, umanifim besudarim, and they would wave a flag sort of, one to another, the Yaiden Shigia Sar the Midbar, and like this, the one that was all the way at the end by the Midbar, when he arrived in the Midbar, he waved his flag, the next one waved the flag until the message got back to the person that was by the Beis HaMikdash. So some say that Dirchais means a sort of a platform. These people were standing on an elevated area so they could see one another. Others say that the word Dirchais is a combination of two words, Derech Ois, that on the way they were standing there to make a sign to one another that he arrived. That's the Tanakama, how it says how they knew. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, there's a much simpler way. V'halei simen gadol haya lehem. They have a very simple simen. Yerushalayim va'ad Beis Chadudai, from Yerushalayim until an area that's called Beis Chadudai, which is the beginning of the Midbar, which is where the Sar Lazazel went. Shloisha milin. There was only 3 milin. So therefore, you have this following sign. Hoyel Chin mil, the one that accompanied the person that's taking the Sar Lazazel. So they, as we learned in the previous Mishnah, go with him 1 mil. The Chayzrin mil, and then they return walking back another mil. And then the Vishayin Kedei mil. And then you wait the amount of time that it took them to walk that mil, and the Yayin Shigi is Sar Midbar. So then they know that the Sar arrived to the Midbar. Simple siman. Rabbi Shmuel says, I have another siman, also simple siman. They had this siman that was very clear to them, which is the Lashon Shal Zahairis, the red thread that Hayakasha Pischa Shalulam, that they tied to the opening of the Ulam, Ukashigia Sar Midbar. When the Sar arrived into the Midbar, Haya Lashon Malbin. It became white. That the red thread, if the Avedas are red, so it turns into white like snow. So Rabbi Shmuel, we learned this before, that this wasn't done in the later time. Only in the beginning they did this, but then eventually, when sometimes it did not turn white, they stopped doing it. So Rabbi Shmuel is talking about when they actually used to do it. So then you could see, as soon as it turned white, the Kohen Gadol knew that he could continue his Aveda. Otherwise, you're going to have to rely either on the Siman of Rabbi Yehuda or on what the Tanna Kama says. Omar Abaye, so Abaye says regarding the Tanna Kama, Shma Mino Beis Chadudai B'Midbar Kaima. That Beis Chadudai is in the Midbar. That's a place that's at the beginning of the Midbar. And what do we see from here? V'hokamash Malan. This is what the Mishnah is teaching me. The Kasava Rabbi Yehuda, that Rabbi Yehuda holds. The Gemara takes out Rabbi Yehuda because it's really going on the Tanna Kama. Kivin she'igi soil the Midbar. As soon as the soil arrives into the Midbar, even before he comes to the actual Azazel and he's thrown down the cliff, Nasas Mitzvah. That's already enough that the mitzvah was done, that it came, like the pasuk says, that it has to be Ba Midbar, it arrived to the Midbar, and then the Kohen Gadol could continue to the next part of his Aveda, which is to read from the Parsha in the Torah, as we'll see in the next Mishnah.
So it doesn't turn white until, it only turns white when it gets to the middle, not after it
Right,
goes down.
correct.
So
Right,
the
it
string
turned white earlier.
on the
Horn and on the
thing
turned white later, after it was pushed off the cliff, correct? Sagt Gemara, Hadran Alach Shnei Seirei. So this is the conclusion of the 6th Perek of Masechta Yuma. Sagt Mishnah, continuing the next thing of what the Kohen Gadol does now. So Bala Kohen Gadol Likrais, the Kohen Gadol comes to read from the Torah. And we learned this out, as Rashi here says, just like by the Yeshivas Yimei Meluim, Moshe Rabbeinu had to read and tell everybody what was being done. So too over here, compared to the Shivas Yimei Miluim, that the Kohen Gadol reads from the Torah about the Aveda that he did in the Beis HaMikdash. Now, if he wants to read from the Torah with his white linen garments that he's wearing, still wearing his white garments, he can read with them. And if not, he can put on his own white robe, not from the Bigdei Kohuna, and he could read like that from the Torah. Now the process is as follows: Chazan HaKnesses. There was a shul over there, not inside the Beis HaMikdash, but right outside the Azara, and then the Har HaBayis, there was a shul, and there was a Chazan HaKnesses, which is the Gabbai. He's the caretaker or the overseer. The word Chazan is Lashon Choyzeh. He sees, he oversees everything that goes on in the shul. Neitel Sefer Torah, he would take the Sefer Torah from the shul, v'noisnei l'Rosh HaKnesses, and he would give it to the Rosh, to the leader in the shul. And the Rosh HaKnesses, noisnei l'Sgan, and the Rosh HaKnesses would give it to the Sgan Kohen, v'Asgan noisnei l'Kohen Gadol, and the Sgan would give it to the Kohen Gadol. And then the Kohen Gadol oimed u'mekabel, and he would stand and receive the Sefer Torah, and he would read from Achrei Mos, from the beginning of Parshas Achrei Mos, the first part of the Parsha, where it talks about all the halachas of Yom Kippur, and Va'ach Ba'aser, and then he would read from Ach Ba'aser, which is in Parshas Emor, also speaks about Yom Kippur. And then the Goyel Sefer Torah, they would roll up to Sefer Torah, Menichai B'cheikai, and he would place it on the lap of the Kohen Gadol. And Va'aymer, and he would tell the people, Yaiser Mimah Shekarasi Lefnechem Kosav Kan. More than what I actually read is written in the Torah, because he skipped from Parshas Achrei Mos to Parshas Emor. So they shouldn't think that the Sefer Torah is possible, it doesn't have everything in it. So he says that we skipped it, and there's more, everything is written in the Torah. And then, He reads also from Chaimish HaPikudim, which is in Parshas Pinchas, where it talks about the Musafin and the of Yom Kippur, Kair al Peh. That he reads outside, not from the Torah itself, as the Gemara will explain. Then Mavarach Aleh Shmeine brachas. When you read from the Torah, you make 8 brachas on the Torah. Birchas ala Torah. You make the bracha on the Torah, bracha of Neisnat Torah. Then Vala Aveda. Another bracha al Aveda, as Rashi brings it, it's Sei Bamchi Yisrael. Then Vala Oida, Moed Manachnu Loch. Then Val Mechilas Oven, there's a bracha for the Mechila of the Avedis. Then Va'ala Mikdosh, a bracha especially for the Beis HaMikdash B'fnei Atzmo, a separate bracha for that. Val Yisrael, a bracha for the Yidden. Then B'fnei Atzmo, a separate bracha for that. Val Yushalayim B'fnei Atzmo, another bracha for Yerushalayim. Then Val HaKayin B'fnei Atzmo, a bracha for the Kayinim. Val Sharat Tfilah, and then the Kayin davens, a bracha, he davens for the Yidden, a general Tfilah for the Yidden on Yom Kippur. Now the Mishnah says, Haraya Kayin Gadol Keshuk Kaira. Someone that's there present and he's able to see the Kayin Gadol reading from the Sefer Torah, Ein Haraya Par V'Sayir on Nisrafim, will not be able to see what's being done outside with the par and the sayir that are being burnt there. The Haraya Par V'Sayir on Nisrafim, someone that went outside to follow them to see how they're going to burn the parts of the Karbanis, Ein Haraya Kayin Gadol Keshuk Kaira, cannot see the Kayin Gadol inside the Beis HaMikdash when he reads from the Torah. Reason is not because you're not allowed, but because when they took it out, it was far away. That is, they both were done at the same time. They carried it out, and while this was being burnt outside, the Kohen Gadol was reading from the Torah inside. It's 2 different locations. The Gemara goes back to the beginning of the Mishnah. What did it say? That he reads from the Torah while he's wearing his Big Day Kohona, the white linen garments. And then it said that, but if he wants, he could put on his own white robe. So if it says that he could read from the Torah wearing his own white robe, Meklal, I see from this, the Kriya Lav Aveidahi. Reading from the Torah is not an Aveda. Kohen Gadol has to do the Aveda with the Big Day Kohona. He's allowed to wear his own garments. Okatani, but then it also says, Imratza Likrais be Big Day Boots, Kaira, that if he wants to read from the Torah with his white Big Day Kohona, he could read with them. Shamet Mina. If so, I see from here, I can prove from here, Big Day Kohona, Nitnu Lahanispan, that the Big Day Kohona, you're allowed to have benefit from them even when you're not doing the Aveda. Because this is clearly not an Aveda. He can wear his own robe, and yet it says, if he wants, he can wear the Big Day Kohona. So this is a raya to that halacha. So the Gemara says, no, it's not a raya. Dilmish Shani Kriya, maybe reading from the Torah is different. The Tzairech Aveidahi. Even if it's not part of the Aveda itself, but it's for the purpose of the Aveda. It's connected to the Aveda. He's coming to say what he just did. So therefore over here, he's allowed, if he wants, he's allowed to wear the Big Day Kohona. But Stam, to wear the Big Day Kohona while he's doing anything else that's not connected to the Aveda, he's not allowed. So now the Gemara brings the source of this Ibaya. The Ibaya the question was asked, Big Day Kohona, the garments of the Kohen Gadol, or any Kohen, Nitnu Lahanis Behen, are you allowed to have any benefit from them even while you're not doing the Aveda? Or Nitnu Lahanis Behen, or you're not allowed to have benefit from them when you're not doing the Aveda? So a raya was brought to this, Toshema, Loi Hoyu Yushainim be Big Day Kodesh. So it says that the Kohen did not sleep in his holy garments. So what do you see from this? This is in Talmud. Shina Hudalai. They're not allowed to sleep in their Big Day Kohona. But they're allowed to eat in their Big Day Kohona, right? It says only regarding sleeping when a person sleeps, so it's not the right covet for the garments. A person passes air when he's sleeping, so therefore you shouldn't sleep in the garments. But eating is allowed to. So you see that even when you don't do the Aveda, you're allowed to wear these garments. So the Gemara says, no, it's not a raya. Dilme Shani Achila, again the same point. The reason why he's allowed to eat in these garments, in the Big Day Kohona, the Tzairech Aveidahi, because with the eating, it's referring to the eating of the Karbanis. Mm-hmm. The eating of the Karbanis, this is also connected to the Aveda. Kedetanya, as we learned in the Braisa, V'achlu oisam asha kupa behem. They should eat from the Karbanis with which the person is being atoned through. Melamed, from here I learn, Sha'kayanim oichlim, u'bailim iskaprim. The Kayanim eat from these Karbanis, and the owner gets his kapara. So I see that the Kayanim eating is also part of the kapara. So therefore that diuk doesn't prove anything. But now the Gemara says, wait, we can say the diuk in a different way. It says, Shina hudaloi, that a Kayin should not sleep in the Big Day Kohona, but hiluchim ahalchi. but he's allowed to walk around in them, even if he's not actually doing the Aveda. So we see that he can wear them even while he's not doing the Aveda. So the Gemara answer is no. Maybe the pshat in that halacha is different. The truth is the haluchinami loy. That it should have said over there that the kohen should not wear and walk around with his garments, even not sleeping, just walking around also not. The only reason in the beginning of the Braise it mentioned about sleeping is because it wanted to tell you another halacha regarding the sleeping in the Sefer. What does it say in the Sefer? Paishtin, you take off the garments and the kaplin and you fold them, umanichin tachas rashayim, and then the kohen can put it under his head and he could sleep with it that way. So therefore, because he wanted to tell you the halacha about taking it off and putting it under his head, or the Mefarshim actually say, it doesn't mamish put it under his head, because then he's still having a noah. He's using it as a pillow. But he puts it besides his head, so therefore it mentions Shina on the Reisha. But really, the Kohen cannot use the begadim in any way, not only sleeping, but Bechlal, you don't use it if you're not doing the Aveda. And the issue would be Me'ilah. You're having a noah from the Big Day Kohona, which are holy, not during the time of the Aveda. It's an issue of Me'ilah.